Because he's from Compton, he thinks he knows the Raider way. It's a joke.
Born and raised in L.A.?
Born and raised in L.A., Compton, California.
Like, seriously, why would you stir up the Chiefs? Like, they're laughing. They're laughing at him.
Well,
we're not in high school.
Exactly.
He's insulting our intelligence with this stuff.
Why won't somebody in the Raiders tell him to shut up? Like, you're not P.T. Barnum. Stop promoting. Like, get back to work. Because he was the head coach in that game. You can't blame that on Josh McDaniels. Like, if I'm Telesco, I'm saying, hey, Antonio, shut up.
Ladies and gentlemen, the biggest hater in Raiders history strikes yet again. This time, his latest target is the new head coach, Antonio Pierce. This is such a special occasion that I had to rock one of my favorite shirts. Michael Lombardi has been talking mad trash on Antonio Pierce, and it seems nasty, it seems personal, and it's quite clear where this is all coming from. We've had a long history of covering Michael Lombardi on this channel. His son was Mick Lombardi, the offensive coordinator of the Raiders when Josh McDaniels was the head coach. He would defend Josh McDaniels during that horrible era, but he would assure us he's not saying all these things because his son works there and he's not a shill for Mr. McD.
My son's the offensive coordinator, and people are saying, well, you're going to defend your son. That's not the case here. Look, wants to blame Josh McDaniels because Josh McDaniels was a shitty coach in Denver. Well, it's a long time from Denver. Like, don't you think people change?
This is the same guy that blamed Derek Carr for everything in the 2022 season, and he assured us that Jimmy Garoppolo is tough and would be an upgrade, and Josh McDaniels is not the problem in Vegas. But what was crazy is he was so ruthless against Carr and would even get upset about the notion of him doing well in New Orleans. One of his more recent shitty statements is when he tried to tank CJ Stroud's draft stock.
I'm not sold CJ Stroud is going number 2. When you talk to people in the league, they'll tell you CJ Stroud is not an easy guy to coach. He's very not believing in what you're saying. He thinks he knows a little bit better.
Okay.
I'm just saying the vibe that you get from talking to people that have interviewed him is he's not an easy guy to coach.
Yeah, that hot take aged like milk. Another thing about Michael Lombardi is he's a real big-time Bill Belichick guy. A lot of his friends are Patriots adjacent people like Josh McDaniels, so that has been his claim to fame over the past few years. He knows the great Bill Belichick. He's friends with all the Patriots people. Therefore, he knows what's going on in the league and knows a ton about football. But now all of these dudes are unemployed. Belichick's unemployed. Josh McDaniels is unemployed. So now he has nothing. He has no claim to fame. All of the people who gave him credibility have all been recently fired. And obviously he has a bone to pick with the Raiders specifically because Josh McDaniels was employing his little son Mick Lombardi as the offensive coordinator. One of Lombardi's other claims to fame is that he worked with the Raiders and Al Davis as an executive for quite some time from 1998 all the way to 2006. But Al Davis ended up not liking this guy, got rid of the guy, and famously said in 2008 that Mike Lombardi has been fired from every job he's ever had, every job. He can't get a job. Last year he was fired from a job he was working for nothing. He was fired from Denver, but he does have ability. He does have some ability. One ability was to screw over the Raiders, and that is what he did, more specifically in the Randy Moss trade. Lombardi has always been more loyal to the Patriots than to the Raiders. He was once employed by Al Davis and apparently told Davis that Randy Moss had lost his speed and should be traded. Moss was traded to the Patriots and proved he still had his athleticism. Al Davis eventually smartened up and fired Lombardi. Warren Sapp shared the same story in 2023.
And I was sitting there with him. And Tom threw one of them deep bombs to Randy, and Randy ran underneath. He turned and looked at me and he said, Mike Lombardi said he couldn't run anymore.
Has Michael Lombardi always been a snake for the Patriots at the Raiders' expense? I wonder. So he was sketchy with the Raiders towards the tail end of his career. He's upset that all his Patriots friends are unemployed. His son's been fired, doesn't have a job right now, is probably hitting him up for money, who knows? And now he's ripping into the guy who replaced his son's boss, Josh McDaniels, and it seems so personal, and there's so much venom there. He claimed Pierce doesn't know anything about the quote-unquote Raider way.
When your man over there, Pierce, talks about the Raider way, see, the Raider way isn't a word. It isn't it's about, this is the prototype of the player we want at this position. That's the Raider way. It's not about playing tough. See, this is what's just so comical. And he's talking about it because he's from Compton. He thinks he knows the Raider way. It's a joke.
So he's mocking Pierce's description definition of the Raider way, claiming Al Davis was about speed while Pierce is just talking about toughness and physicality. I don't understand why Lombardi is expecting Pierce to be specific when he's talking about the type of players he wants to get. Why would Pierce give up his strategy to other GMs and other coaches around the NFL? Obviously, he's just gonna say some vague hype stuff when he's talking about the type of players he wants to grab. Lombardi just seems to hate this guy so much that he's nitpicking at every single thing he does. The latest nitpick was even more crazy when Lombardi said that Pierce needs to shut up when Pierce boasted about beating Patrick Mahomes and the Chiefs and talked about the Mahomes rules that the Raiders have for him.
Raiders head coach Antonio Pierce was on the rush with Max Crosby this past week, and while he did give the Chiefs their props for winning another Super Bowl, he also said Vegas is motivated to run it back against the Chiefs.
Who's last time to beat the Chiefs? Come on, man. These dudes, you know what I mean? Like, they did that. Yeah. So it's okay. It's cool. Like I told them, like, we're running back. We'll see them again. They got to see us. We got to see them. Yeah. And we already given the recipe of how to do it.
Yeah, I mean, you got to be kidding me. They completed one pass after the first quarter. It wasn't until the last drive of the game that they were able to run the ball. I mean, Antonio Pierce is becoming a showman. I like strategists. I like tacticians. You're going to get your butt beat. Like, seriously, why would you stir up the Chiefs? Like, they're laughing. They're laughing at them. I think, to me, there's got to be more substance to this than just rah-rah. Well, we're not in high school.
Exactly.
He's insulting our intelligence with this stuff. Be a head coach. Be a strategist. Keep your mouth shut. Don't put the gauntlet out. I mean, to me, he's just becoming P.T. Barnum. He's going out there selling stuff.
He's saying Pierce sounds like a promoter. He's saying Telesco needs to tell Pierce to shut up.
I did want to get your quick thoughts on Antonio Pierce, Raiders head coach. They're going to go ahead and treat Patrick Mahomes like the Detroit bad boy.
This guy's driving me crazy. This guy, can he just shut up? Why won't somebody in the Raiders tell him to shut up? Like, just shut up. Like, you're not P.T. Barnum. Stop promoting. Like, get back to work. I mean, like, what are you doing? Your job is to be a strategist. Your job isn't to be a promoter. I mean, like, this is, he's embarrassed. I'm just telling you, this is bad.
This guy freaking hates Antonio Pierce for one obvious reason. But the claim that Lombardi is making is that the Raiders got lucky on Christmas when they did defeat the Kansas City Chiefs. This is why he also brought up the fact that the Raiders initially did lose to the Chiefs and that you can't blame McDaniels for that.
They lost 31-17 in week 12 of the season to the Chiefs. Did he forget that game? Because he was the head coach in that game. Can't blame that on Josh McDaniels. I mean, if I'm the Raiders, like if I'm Telesco, I'm saying, hey, Antonio, shut up, man. Just shut up. Go back to coaching a team.
And look, it is true the Raiders got 2 defensive touchdowns against the Chiefs on Christmas. Aiden O'Connell did not complete a pass for 3 quarters. That is true. But they still were the last team to beat the Super Bowl champion Kansas City Chiefs. Antonio Pierce was an interim head coach at this time. Imagine if he had a competent offense. Imagine if he had his own hand-picked quarterback, his own hand-picked coordinator, because the Raiders had to roll with Bo Hardegree at coordinator, who had never called plays in the NFL before. So I don't understand why Antonio Pierce can't just be proud of the fact that his team shockingly had an upset against the Super Bowl champion. Yes, Pierce is a rah-rah guy, but there are tons of rah-rah successful head coaches in the NFL, like Dan Campbell of the Detroit Lions and Mike Tomlin of the Pittsburgh Steelers. Would Michael Lombardi be saying these same things about these 2 head coaches? I don't think so. So look, you can criticize Pierce all you want. You can criticize every head coach and find something wrong with them, but it's just so odd to see the anger and the venom coming from Michael Lombardi on Antonio Pierce specifically. The guy seems fixated on him. As you watch his podcast, you'll find him periodically mentioning Antonio Pierce apropos of nothing. Even though the Raiders aren't even the topic, aren't even the subject of their segment, Pierce is on this man's mind and he will periodically bring him up all the time. It just seems so personal. He seems so salty because McDaniels was kicked to the curb and then Antonio Pierce took his spot. And Michael Lombardi was wrong about CJ Stroud, wrong about Derek Carr, wrong about Josh McDaniels, wrong about Jimmy Garoppolo, wrong about his son, who I'm sorry sucks as an offensive coordinator, Mick Lombardi. For some reason, this fat son of a bitch is wrong about everything. So if this guy has this history of being wrong all the time, you can bet he's going to be wrong about Antonio Pierce as well. The thing about Michael Lombardi is he just needs to move on from the past. He is still stuck in 2006. 2006. It is no longer 2006. Belichick is not the greatest coach in the world anymore, and you're no longer employed by Al Davis. You don't have the ability to speak on the Raider way anymore. That was all back in the past in 2006. It is now 2024, and Michael Lombardi needs to move on. But yes, Lombardi is right. Pierce is going to sound like a promoter. Why wouldn't he? It's the offseason. You're supposed to pump up your team and pump up your fan base. And what's this guy gonna do if Pierce does something that Josh McDaniels never did with the Las Vegas Raiders, which is have a winning record? What is Michael Lombardi gonna say then? But the bottom line is Antonio Pierce is a brand new head coach. He's going to have a lot of doubters and a lot of haters like Michael Lombardi praying for his downfall. Will he congratulate Pierce when it's all said and done? Surely he will congratulate Antonio Pierce if he proves him wrong when it's all said and done. Yeah, I don't think so. If you're still watching at this point, I really appreciate it. Like this video if you have not yet, and subscribe to this channel for more NFL content from me, Wi-Fi Willie. Peace out, and I hope you have a good one.